We'll be providing you with the contact information throughout this presentation. So without further ado, let's get started with this orientation. Doug, let's go to the next slide, slide number 3. Okay, so I wanted to cover some of the basics first. Who are we and what do we do here at GSA? So our roles as business development specialists are to support you, our industry partners, with training, guidance, or as the title suggests, business development. You can think of us as your GSA ambassadors. You can count on us to support you in this role, but we need your cooperation and commitment in doing your part as our partners. And basically what that means is that we need you to attend all or as many of the trainings that we offer. So whether it's training in the areas of new lead generation, marketing, compliance, or maintenance, we need you there. These trainings are designed to assist you in your journey in becoming a successful partner. So it's I guess imperative that you make these trainings that make them the top priority with your business with GSA. We also want you to understand that all discussions relating to your contract and decisions relating to your contracts, I should say, lie with your CO. So we can only provide you with guidance and our opinions, but ultimately it's your CO that's going to make any and all final determinations. Okay, so with that said, let's go to slide number 5, Doug. Okay. So in addition to your BD team, there are 3 main contractual points of contact that you will be working with throughout the life of your contract. And they are as follows. They're your procurement contracting officer, which is your PCO. These people vendor modifications such as price reductions, EPAs, or additions or deletions of products or services, novations, and things of that nature. Your PCO can be found on eLibrary. I'm going to show you a slide later on, which is going to give you some instructions on how to just input that information to find who your PCO is. Your second point of contact is your administrative contracting officer. And these are the folks that handle the mass modifications, the subcontracting plans, and things of that nature. Again, you're going to find that contact later on in the slide that I show you regarding I just went blank, the vendor slide. So, and your third point of contact is going to be your industrial operations analyst, which is also known as your IOA. And these folks are going to be handling your contract sales reporting, your IFF, your assessments, and things of that nature. Again, that's also going to be found in the VSC website. So, Doug, let's go to slide number 6 so I could show them what that VSC website looks like. So here with this slide, I provided you with the link to the VSC. And again, this could be used to find all those main contractual points of contact for your contract. This would be a very good reference to keep. We're going to send these slides over to you so that you'll have them for future reference. Okay. So let's go to slide deck number 7. Now that I've covered some of the basics of your contract, I'm going to dive into some of the meat and potatoes. So what's MAS? MAS is basically what does MAS stand for? It means multiple award schedule. So your MAS contract is a commercial item acquisition vehicle. All services and products, the firm fixed price. The contract is a 5-year indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract with 3 additional 5-year options. So it's a total of 20 altogether. There's only one contract, and it's organized by your special item number, which is also known as your SIN number. Okay, the contract uses the FAR 8.4 streamlined process. We're going to discuss the benefits of the FAR 8.4 throughout this training. But for now, just know that it's the regulation for use by executive agencies in their acquisition of supplies and services with appropriated funds. Okay. Also, it has the ability for blanket purchase agreements. Again, something that we're going to cover later on in this training. What you need to know is that GSA multiple award schedules are fast, easy, and effective contracting vehicles for our customers. GSA establishes these schedules as long-term government-wide contracts with commercial companies such as yourselves, our industry partners, to provide access to millions of commercial products and services at volume discount pricing. So, just to give you a little bit of tidbit, the FAR 8.4 allows federal agencies to streamline the acquisition process if they use a contract such as the MAS. So this ensures continuity of service. So, for example, when using eBuy, customers may select as few as 3 vendors and send them an RFP and RFQ, and this meets their requirements. But we're going to get into that a little bit more as we progress with this training. Let's go to the next slide, Doug. So, MAS buying procedures. As I stated in the previous slide, customers use the FAR 8.4 buying procedure. The FAR 8.4 governs the operation and use of the scheduled program. It's the regulation used by all federal executive agencies in their acquisitions and supplies with appropriated funds. Well, you might be saying, so how does this really benefit me as a contract holder? Well, as a contract holder, you have been pre-vetted and found capable of providing these goods or services under this contract that provide incredible benefits to our customers. Basically, agencies are more inclined to use the MAS schedule program because of these benefits. And I'm going to go over these benefits real quickly right now. So some of these benefits include a firm fixed price contract, 5-year IDIQ, fair and reasonable negotiated pricing, which has already been done for them, more discounts based upon the value of the buy. It allows, as I stated earlier, it allows for 3 or more quotes to satisfy competition. It allows for subcontracting and partnering agreements as well as BPAs. It also allows agencies to achieve socio-economic goals and allows for best value award with no posting. Okay, so those are the main benefits to using MAS. There are 2 basic ways orders are placed and received, and they are via eBuy or via Advantage. eBuy, which is the main conduit for larger purchases over 10,000, handles both products and services. GSA Advantage, on the other hand, is our government online purchasing website, which is mainly just used for products. It's the site for purchase card purchases, which are typically under $10,000 for supplies. Okay. Let's go to slide deck number 10, Doug. Okay. So here I'd like to show you an example of a standard form SF 1449. This is what you will receive when you get an order from eBuy. Basically, it's an award documentation that's emailed to you, sort of like a GSA receipt. On it, you'll see things like your GSA contract number, your ordering agency, item or service type and quantity. In essence, again, it's a receipt for the goods or services that an agency has purchased from you. When a customer places an order for your product on GSA Advantage, you will receive a GSA system generated notice. Not the same form, but something very similar to the SF 1449. Okay. Let's go to slide deck number 10. So, we hope this eye test provides some insight on what constitutes a sale. I know it's a little busy and a little confusing, but In actuality, it's just an overview of what the necessary steps are to determine a scheduled sale. So what constitutes a sale? We're going to go over that in the next slide, and it's very important that you understand what constitutes a sale. Okay, slide deck number 11. Okay. So being able to accurately identify MAS orders is one of the cornerstones to becoming a successful MAS contractor. Sales tracking, quarterly reporting, pricing, procurement terms and conditions. These are just a few of the areas that are directly dependent on whether an order is being placed against your MAS contract or being procured by some other means. Ultimately, it is your responsibility to know when your contract is being utilized. So it is imperative that you familiarize yourself with the site provided on the previous slide. Generally, if an order is placed by an eligible user, fits within scheduled parameters, and is not identified as other than a scheduled sale by the ordering activity, it is considered to be a scheduled sale for all intents and purposes. The clearest sign that a purchase order is a scheduled sale is when GSA contract number, your GSA contract number is referenced on the purchase or task order. There's also other examples. For example, the contract number is not on the order, but the ordering information and terms are the same as those on your scheduled contract. The customer pays with the government purchase card. That could be another one. The pricing is at or below the contract price, or there is no indication of any other procurement vehicle being used. Again, that's another one. The bottom line is this: if you have any questions regarding an order or potential order regarding a scheduled sale, if you think it's not, or if you think it is and you still don't know, just feel free to contact your ordering activity buyer. So that's your GSA PCO, your ACO, or your IOA. Again, it's better to be safe than to tend to have the problems later on. Whether it's not, determining whether it's not your in your Valley Wagon. Let's go to the next slide, contract sales reporting. So you must report your sales online. So basically, after you make all these sales, at the end of each quarter, the quarterly reporting system has to be updated with the information regarding your sales. So sales reports need to be submitted within 30 days after the end of each quarter. So that would be January 30th, April 30th, July 30th, and October 30th. It's a good idea to report your sales as quickly as possible, because if you put it off, it's easy to forget. Also, keep in mind, if no sales occur under your contract for the quarter, you're still responsible for filling out the sales report by entering zeros for the sins that are under your contract. So I'll say that again, because again, a lot of the customers a lot of our industry partners, our vendors, tend to forget this. So if no sales occur under the contract for the quarter, you're still responsible for filling out the sales report by entering zeros for each sin. Also, keep in mind that you will be asked to report your sales under each sin separately. So this includes any special programs you have incorporated into your MAS contract, such as the cooperative purchasing and the disaster recovery. Those programs have specific sins, and therefore those sales need to be separated and reported under those separate sins. Let's go to slide deck number 13, Doug. Okay, so this is crucial. Sales criteria. So it used to be that your MAS contract require you to generate at least $25,000 in sales for the first 24 months of your contract, and to maintain those $25,000 in sales every year thereafter. However, that's been updated. So as of now, this is per contract and not per sin. The update reads as follows. The administration has just amended this rule as follows. You will need to generate 100,000 of sales in the first 60 months. So rather than doing 25 in the first 2 months, you will need to do 100,000 in the first 60 months of your contract and 125,000 in sales, 60-month option thereafter. So it's making it a little bit easier for you to meet those criteria. So very important to keep in mind. After you reported the sales for the quarter, your industrial funding fee, also known as your IFF payment, is automatically calculated for you. So currently the IFF is 0.75%. Total customers who use the schedule program pay the fee, which is already included in your awarded contract price. You simply serve as the collection agent, and even though the ordering activity pays the fee when they purchase your products and services, you're responsible to submit that IFF to GSA on a quarterly basis. Okay, IFF should not be billed as a separate item. I'm going to say that again. IFF should not be billed as a separate item. It's already incorporated in your contract. We're going to go over the TAA right now. Let's go to slide number 14, Doug. The Trade Agreements Act, the TAA. This is the overarching statute implementing a number of trade agreements and other trade initiatives. Basically, we ask that you review your price list and your GSA Advantage file to see if all your items are compliant or in compliance with TAA. In addition, make sure that the country of origin listed in the GSA Advantage is an accurate representation of where the item is being manufactured. You have to notify your PCO, your procurement contracting officer, if you identify any non-compliant items so that they can be removed from your price list immediately. So compliance with the TAA is a mandatory thing. Compliance will minimize the risk that you and your company will face any serious negative consequences. Maintaining constant compliance with the TAA is a serious matter, and numerous companies have lost millions of dollars due to TAA compliance issues. Please do not take TAA compliance lightly or undermine the possibility of serious consequences that could arise. Please remember that it is your responsibility to remain in compliance with the TAA over the life of the contract. So it's not just the initial review, but it's also keeping in mind that this is throughout the life of the contract that you need to remain in compliance with the TAA. So anyway, Doug, I've covered a lot of items, and I know a lot of our vendors have plenty of questions, but I'm going to turn over to the second part of this training over to you.
Thanks, Anthony. And thanks everyone for coming. Doug Nelson here. So the first slide I wanted to go over is some multiple award schedule common misconceptions, just to clear it out right off the bat while you guys are new. So you may have seen on your terms and conditions price list that you had to submit during your offer that there was a max ordering threshold on your SIN. And all that means is that it's a kind of a protection for you. It means that the government can't give you an order above that threshold without you actually quoting for it first. So it's not like if the SIN's max ordering threshold is $500,000 and you see an opportunity that you estimate is $1 million, you could certainly quote $1 million on that opportunity. It's just more for you, the threshold. Next one up is the difference between NAICS codes and the SIN numbers, the special item numbers. Like Anthony said, that's how the multiple award schedule is organized at like a tactical level of how the customers find you, because they post the opportunity on the SIN. So, but the SINs are NAICS based to help them find you, provide that good or service, but they're not NAICS codes, even though they're based on NAICS codes. And the reason why I mentioned that is, so you only, for the purposes of your small business status, you only have one contract level NAICS code. It lasts for all 20 years and you already picked it. So if you have 5 different SINs on your contract, you don't have 5 different small business size determinations. You only have that one contract level one, and you can look it up in eLibrary. So that's important because I've seen in the past before we did these trainings where a company wouldn't want to add a SIN because they thought they weren't going to be small on it, but that doesn't work that way. If you're small on eLibrary, you're small on every SIN that you have. Another thing that's unique, that's a nice perk for the GSA contracts is if you outgrow your small business size, for the small business on the call, you only have to re-represent yourself at the option years. So if you outgrow at year 2 or 3, you actually get to stay a small business until year 5. Is another thing. The last bullet right there, like when the customer plugs in your GSA contract number to put in the federal procurement data system, they don't even get to choose the NAICS code. It automatically populates based on your contract level NAICS code. So how do the customers find your GSA contract? So there's 3 main websites, primary, but they're not the only ones. But the three main would be eLibrary, which is kind of like the GSA phone book that has all the SINs and all the GSA companies on there, where they could find your price list on there too, with your terms and conditions and your contact information. Then eBuy, like what Anthony said, that's the main area where they'll post RFQ opportunities, requests for quotes, usually for stuff that's over the micro purchase threshold, the credit card limit, which is $10,000. But they could post things that are underneath that if they can't find you on Advantage. But that's typically what it's used for, a larger dollar amount. And GSA Advantage, which is the e-commerce site, and then of course like your own websites and whatnot. So we're gonna go over each one of these a little bit more. So for eLibrary, can't overemphasize enough to keep it up to date. So when I sent this invite, I initially tried to use your eLibrary email addresses, and I got 4 kickbacks from folks that have dead email addresses on there, or you still have your third-party consultant from the pre-award on there that might be getting your emails. So you can certainly use a consultant for contract administration too. So that's might be why you have it on there. But if I suggest everyone go look at your eLibrary to confirm that you have the best point of contact on there. And the reason for that is, especially for the product companies on the call, the customers will call to like verify inventory or ask for shipping quotes if it's FOB origin. And if you have a bad email or phone number on there, they'll just go to the next company instead of doing business with you. Websites, those are optional, but I saw not everyone has websites on there, and that's perfectly fine, but you can always add it with the contract modification. And then lastly, and probably the most important, is your price list is on there, your terms and conditions price list. And the reason why I bring that up is a significant portion of folks on the call do not have their price list up yet, which is fine because a lot of you are very new. But like, if you don't have your price list up there, then you're basically dead in the water, because then you have no items listed on Advantage and you can't log into eBuy to look at opportunities that are larger dollar amount. So to get your price list up, you have to download this kind of archaic program called the Schedule Input Program, where we have links later on in the presentation to upload the PDF or Word document, terms and conditions price list, and then for the product companies, your catalog that would go on GSA Advantage. But you want to make that like priority number 1 if you haven't done it already, because you basically, your contract is not even usable right now until it's up. Lastly, on eLibrary, your point of contact, your PCO is on there. I'm going to switch over real quick just to show eLibrary. So here's just some random GSA contract holder on here. So there's the contract information I was talking about. Right here is the contract level NAICS code. So that's the only thing that determines your small business status, is that contract level NAICS code, not these SINs right here. They might, especially like your first SIN you might match the NAICS code, but like it doesn't matter. Like this company doesn't have a separate small business size determination because of having this 611430. But right here, those are your SINs that you hold. And then there's the PCO up here, and then your socioeconomic status is right here. And then this was talked about, if you want to check this out right now, if you log in and put your company name or your contract number in it, if you have this little icon right here, that means your price list is up. If it's not there, that means your price list is not up right now. Another nice thing, this is not a product, well, it might be a product company, but this right here on the right-hand side of the screen is a nice way to filter all the stuff that you have on Advantage just for you, so you can check out how it looks for customers instead of manually searching for it. As you click that button right there. And you can also click on the SINs to see, all the different competitors on the SIN, how many there are. This one has 1,100. You can sort by, and you can check out everyone else's price list too. So it's a great tool to be on eLibrary to monitor that kind of stuff. Next up is eBuy. So first bullet right there, if you get one thing out of this presentation, because this is one takeaway, it's this, that you can only see the request for quotes that for the SINs you have. Like that company had 2 SINs, so they only can see 2 SINs worth of RFQs, and that's fine. But the reason why I bring that up is especially because in the offer process, a lot of folks are very conservative and don't want to ask for too many SINs because they want the offer to get through because it takes a while. But now that you have a contract, I would review all the SINs that are available and make sure that all your business lines are represented by the SINs that you have. So if you notice that you do something else and you don't have that SIN, maybe put a contract modification in and add that SIN, because otherwise you're not going to see all those opportunities that are posted to that SIN. So, and that goes along with the second bullet that I have on there, is that there's a lot of overlap between the SINs too. So even if you think that's the only, you only can have one SIN and that's the best SIN for you, I would take a look at the SIN descriptions, because you never know, like there could be 2 different SINs that the customer would post that opportunity on. And if you don't have the other SIN, you're not going to see that opportunity. So like those are 2 examples right there, that there's 2 different training SINs, 61430 and 61430 talent development. And if the customer interprets it on the one that you don't have, you don't see that opportunity and then you miss out on it. So to get the most out of your contract, I would definitely do a review of all the SINs to make sure that any business line or thing you can justify, you add, just so you see that many more requests for quotes and have potential opportunities to capture. And to do that as a contract modification, to add that on there. Next up, I'm going to go into eBuy just to show you I'm logging in as a buyer. There's a button on the top right that for a seller that you would log in on to see the opportunities. But I'm gonna pretend to post an opportunity just so you can see it from their shoes. So they'll go in here. They may have already went on eLibrary and determine what SIN they wanted, but if not, they can check by the government-wide category, like for facilities or whatnot. Let's say they want to do facility services, so they either type it in the search box, or they could pick, let's say they want to do an energy services opportunity. So now they have that SIN. They can pick more than one SIN, but many times they just pick one. But and that's why I brought up that takeaway before, because there could be similar SINs to this energy services one if that's the only one you have. Next up, they decide if they want to do a small business set aside. If they do, then all the other than smalls would disappear off this list and they won't get notified. Or if they only pick service disabled veteran, then only those are going to be listed on here. Next up, they determine how many folks they want to notify that they posted. And if you see, if I continue, it's going to give them a warning. Like, do you really want to send it out to 100 folks? That you might get too many quotes. So that might scare them a little bit, and they might not notify everyone on the SIN. Now, if they don't notify everyone on the SIN, if you log in on your own, you'll still be able to see it. Just it won't give you an automated notification. So it doesn't necessarily mean they don't want you to quote on that opportunity, just that they might be too apprehensive about sending it out to too many folks on those larger SINs that we have. So best practice would be, once you get in here, have your price list up and you can log into eBuy. Log in, you don't have to do it every day, but 2 to 3 times a week or something like that, because there could be an opportunity that they just didn't notify you that could be perfect for you, that you might, if you don't log in just to check out what's in your inbox, you'll never know about it. So after they decide who they want to notify, they'll put the title, the description, when they want it to close. Note that they can do it at minimum of 2 days, but it's going to default at least to 5 days for them. And then they can post like the statement of work as an attachment, and then they post it out. So just wanted to give you just to see it from their shoes, from the buyer perspective. Here, this link will be on there. This is the available offering spreadsheet of all the SINs, to bring back to that conversation I said about making sure you have every SIN that you can possibly hold, justify to hold, is right there. Another method would be if you go into eLibrary, this is the main page, and you go to the quick search and go multiple award schedule. This is also essentially the master list. This is every single SIN that's out there. It's organized by the government-wide categories, so industrial products and services, and then there's its SINs. So that's another way if you like Control F and do it that way too, besides the spreadsheet. 2 different options. Next up, for the product companies on the call, for Advantage, for GSA Advantage, note that there is an algorithm in the search engine. If for pictures, it'll put you higher in the hit list, the hits. So it's good to have pictures for your items. Of course, item description is really important. Next up, I know sometimes it can't be avoided, and this is not GSA's recommendation, it's just mine, but because I used to be a purchase card holder for the Department of Transportation in a former job, it's better if you can do FOB destination if you can. At least from my perspective, than FOB origin, because it'll be less workload for you and for the purchase card holder, because the way that they have to obligate the funds with the government accounting system beforehand. So they're either going to have to call you to ask you for the shipping quote, and that's going to take time on your side, or they'll have to just overestimate the shipping quote and then de-obligate the money afterward on the government accounting system, which ends up being a lot of extra steps. So some of them might not even be, if there's too close of a price difference between an FOB destination person and an origin person, they might just go with the destination person because it's going to save them labor hours for the transaction. Contact information, we already mentioned that before. Like when I was a purchase card holder, and many purchase card holders, it's a collateral duty. So they have their main duties, but they have their coworkers nagging them. Oh, did you order this thing for me yet? Like, where is it? So they want to get the job done and support their coworkers, but they also want to get it done efficiently. So if you don't answer the phone or you don't answer emails promptly, they're just going to go to the next company because they just want to get the transaction done. It's not worth the 50-cent difference in unit price in some circumstances for the time to get a hold of people. The SIN numbers are not as important on Advantage as that fifth bullet there. So like they're not going to really search by the SIN number, so you don't have to be as worried about holding all the SINs. But of course, for products, it's going to apply for RFQs on eBuy, because if you don't have that SIN on eBuy, like then you're not going to be listed on eBuy to see them. But for Advantage, they're mostly going to search by keyword and things like that, not by SIN number. There is this thing called the Verified Products Portal, especially for like the office supplies companies, that if your manufacturer is on there, and you can ask them, or you can just Google that and like see what manufacturers are on there. If you add their products and they list you on the VPP, then you don't have to do a letter of supply. So it saves you a little bit of time for modifications. Lastly, for Advantage, I showed you that little button to view catalog on eLibrary to filter your items on there. I would recommend that you see where you rack and stack in terms of competitiveness, in terms of pricing, if your items are being sold by more than one company, because you can put an item on sale temporarily to see if it generates more sales and things like that. So I would recommend, once you have your catalog up, to take a look at that. And now we'll just look at Advantage real quick. This is just some random pump, but it's sold by quite a bit of companies, and the purchase card holders are obviously going to start from the top of the lower prices and, call them for availability and go with, before they go up here. So that's why I said check it out how you rack and stack, because if you're on this bottom part, they're probably not going to buy from you. Note that this little red icon right here, this company decided to put the item on sale to see maybe if it'll generate more sales. So you can do those temporary sales. For your price list, especially for the services companies, like that PDF or Word document, it's going to have all your labor categories. But well, the first bullet applies to everyone, even products too. And Anthony mentioned this before, but all the prices are ceiling prices, so you can always give a discount lower. You just can't go above it. Now, if with all the inflation going on, you can do an economic price adjustment mod to raise your prices, which we'll get into the mod stuff later. But until the mod is approved, like that's your ceiling. So for services companies, if you based your labor categories off a higher cost of living area to be competitive for an RFQ in a lower cost area, you can certainly give a lower price than what's just listed on your price list. In regards to labor categories, whether or not you can quote on something, if you think your labor categories and scope of what the RFQ is asking for is not just based on the nomenclature, it has to be verbatim. So it's more about does the duties of your labor category, education and all that, like match what the government's looking for. So it doesn't, that example right there, senior consultant versus project manager, that could be in scope, even though it's not the same job title, if the duties are the same of what they're asking for. But it is a good practice, especially for the wage determination, Service Contract Act, Service Contract Labor Standards, labor categories, is to just use those standard nomenclatures that the Department of Labor have instead of inventing your own, just so you talk apples to apples with the government, with the customer. And it's good to have a range of labor categories. So there's, for the Service Contract Act labor categories, is order clerk 1, 2, and 3. It's always great to have all 3. So if they only ask for labor, order clerk 2 and you only have 1, that might preclude you from quoting on that. These are pricing aspects that are not on your price list. So if there's an RFQ out there and the item that some of the stuff they're asking for is not on your price list or your catalog on Advantage, you can still quote it. It's called open market, where it's not items not on your contract, as long as you clearly mark that they're open market. And there's no dollar amount about how much you can quote open market. However, it starts becoming very painful for the buyer when it becomes over the micro purchase threshold of 10,000. They still might go ahead with it, but it's going to start activating other parts of the federal acquisition regulations where it's going to become a lot of paperwork for them. So unless you're the only quote, they might just move on to the next quote. But if it's 10,000 or lower, it usually is a pretty easy lift for them, and they might go forward with selecting your quote. But if there's any open market on there, they can just totally throw out the quote if they want to, but they don't necessarily have to. But another way to get around that open market, if it's not on your contract, is using the order level materials SIN, which not all of the SINs for folks on the call have this, but for the SINs that it's applicable to, you could use the order level materials SIN perhaps to have it count as on your contract, but it's not really on your contract because it's kind of like supporting the main effort. So it is a little bit complicated to use. So we can spend a whole hour on it alone. So just check out that link if you ever encounter that situation, because then perhaps you can use the OLM instead of quoting open market if the situation occurs. And that little comparison link's really nice to explain the difference in open market and OLM. Last bullet on here, the travel doesn't have to be on your price list for services companies, because that clause in your contract says you can quote it and it doesn't count as open market, but you don't have to pay IFF on that portion of the quote. It just gives you the ability to quote travel, but not count open market. Here are the different modification types. Craig, do you have a question? We can revisit that, I guess, once later on. So, but here are the modification types. So as Anthony said, there's vendor initiated ones and there's ones that GSA does. The mass ones where they shotgun it all out. Like the mass ones are going to be when they have to update a clause because some regulation changed. But the ones you initiate, some of the stuff we already talked about. So if you want to add a SIN, you do that via modification. The administrative ones is like if you need to update your website address or your phone number on your contract. Like we said, that we have a couple of bad email addresses on the call right now. Then the economic price adjustment is that pricing one if you need to increase your pricing because of all the inflation going on. So there's a bunch. Our second call in this series is a whole hour on this topic. We go into each one of these. So just that they're out there for right now until we have our next call together. In the meantime, though, besides, of course, asking us if you want to email us with any questions, but all those different mod types are in this modification guide that has checklist about what you need to submit for that modification, screenshots about the screens you're going to encounter when you submit them. So all that stuff's right there on that link. That if you do need to do a mod in between us and the second call, it's there. When you do mods, you do them on the same website you put your offer in. It's just a separate button. And that third bullet, which gets people all the time, is after the mod's approved and you're all excited that you got the new SIN or new products on there, you do need to go into that SIP program and upload the change. Otherwise, it won't actually be reflected on the public websites. You are authorized to use the GSA logo, like on your website and things like that. On certain circumstances, all the rules are on this link right here, and you can also download them on there. Some of you may have seen these via email already, but market research as a service. So the customers, when they're doing market research, will ask for interested parties. The customer agencies might post that, but they also have this MRAS program where GSA will do it on their behalf. So you'll get them on eBuy, and you'll also get them on email. You can answer; they'll be exactly the same. You can answer them either way, but email response. Doing the response via email is a little bit better, but it doesn't really matter. But if you're interested in that opportunity that email says, I would highly suggest you respond to it. It should only take a couple minutes for most of them. Most of them don't ask for that much. You just click a bunch of radio buttons that you're interested in, what your capabilities are, because this is how they'll determine which is the better SIN to use or what socioeconomics they want to set it aside to. Is these and we're going to get on our third call, get more into that, into detail, because this call is more an overview of a mishmash of a bunch of different stuff. We'll get into more detail in the future calls. This one is also going to be on the third call too. That we'll start looking at this, but in the meantime, there is government websites where they forecast opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. So the first one is for those 4 agencies, but that second link on there is a listing of all the agencies. So they'll do that while they're planning the opportunity before it actually goes out to like real deal solicitation. So you can kind of do a little surveillance beforehand of what's coming down so you can plan for it. This site right here, if you want to, this site's a free site that's amazing, that has every single federal contract that was ever awarded for years and years and years. If you want to check out for your own, your specialization of your business, like what is the agency that's buying the most of whatever you sell or services that you offer. And we're going to go through a whole tutorial on the third call for that. So some things, if you're working with a new customer or you had some existing federal customers, now that you have a GSA contract, there's just some talking point things to mention that now that you're on GSA is like you all know how arduous the offer process is, so they can have further confidence that you've been kind of vetted with that process. They do get the streamlined acquisition that Anthony mentioned with the FAR 8.4 buying procedures. This right here is the government, this category management. The big government's trying to have the agencies stop reinventing the wheel, making standalone contracts starting all over from scratch every single time for requirements and use existing contract vehicles. So the multiple award schedule counts like that. So there's 3 different tiers of credit they get. So if they use your GSA contract, they get tier 2 credit for this category management initiative, which is of course tracked by metrics. Then this small business status from contract level NAICS, that's more a benefit to you, not really to the customer, that you could be a small business on a SIN that you might not be small on an open market, federal market, and get to keep it longer until you have to re-represent yourself at the option year. And another benefit to you is that second to last quote, like you can go on your SIN and see all your competitors. So everything is known about the probability of win in terms of how much competition there could be, what they have on their price list, if they're actually going to quote or not, where they're located in the country. Where on SAM.gov, which is the open market point of entry for federal opportunities, it could be the entire world that bids on it. So you never know. Lastly, this probably won't happen often, but just a tool in your toolbox, if you're working with the customer and they want to do a sole source to you, is that now that you're a GSA contract holder, if that program manager that wants to sole source to you is getting pushback from contracting because there is a metric for competition, and sole sourcing hurts those numbers for competition, that if they sole source to you on GSA, then it's still considered full and open competition for their metrics. It's just at the task order level, an exception to fair opportunity, which it still dings them on their metrics, but not as badly as a sole source in the open market. Might not ever happen, but just good to know that stuff in case it does, because that's a benefit of your GSA contract, perhaps, that might reduce that reservation. This we get more into the third call too, but just so you know, in the meantime, there are GSA employees called customer service directors that are attached to every single federal, state, local, tribal contracting and program office across the entire world. So even like the Army bases in Germany the U.S. Army bases in Germany have a CSD assigned to them. So reason why I'm bringing this up to you is they could be a force multiplier for opportunities. If you're working an opportunity and you loop them in, if you're unsure the customer wants to use a GSA contract vehicle. Another thing that you can use them for is if you're working with the customer and they're like, I don't know how to log into eBuy, or this FAR 8.4 buying procedure is not familiar with. You don't have to give them training to that customer. Just reach out to the CSD by using that link, or email me and Anthony, and we'll find who it is assigned. And that CSD will be more than happy to give free training to that customer about GSA, websites and buying procedures. So, which would help you get your opportunity to move forward too, because they're trying to build that relationship with the customer as much as you are. But we'll get more into depth later on with that in the third call. Contractor teaming arrangements for the successful companies do utilize either subcontracting or CTAs, or a mix of both. But so you can sub out work to a subcontractor, or you can take work as a subcontractor. If you sub out to a subcontractor, they don't even have to even be a GSA contract holder. You can sub out to anyone, any company, just as long as the items or services that are on your price list, though, on your own price list. Then the CTAs, which is a different thing, which is a nice flexibility too, is you team up with another company. They have to be a GSA contract holder, and both of you give a total solution to the customer. Like if they want something you only do the Northeast of the United States, and they want the whole East Coast, like you team up with the company that does the Southeast, specializes in the Southeast, and you both put the quote in together, and you do the Northeast part and invoice that part, and they do the Southeast part and they invoice that part, and you give a total solution, and you both get prime contractor credit as a result of it too. So there's those two different flavors, subcontracting and the contractor teaming, that is available, that are great ways to further your business. And we're wrapping up. These are just some links for extra training. That first link right there, if you have an hour to spare a month, I would highly recommend that. It's from the program office in the multiple award schedule. They always do a different topic. I go if I can make it every single time, because it's always very interesting, and the questions are really good, and things like that. Then GSA Interact is like a message board blog that if you go on that site and you sign up for the multiple award schedule group, then it's kind of fire and forget. You don't have to ever visit that site again because it's just going to email you and they post on the message board, and they don't spam it. Like, it's not a post every single day or something like that. It's a couple times, a quarter but it's good to stay on the latest of what they're changing, what they're adding, if they're adding new sins, this like that. There are YouTube trainings for GSA, believe it or not, too. And then the last two bullets for the small businesses on the call, there are, just in case you're not aware, there are two different small business programs that mostly offer free services to small businesses. The small business development centers are partially funded by the SBA, and they give help to the commercial side of the business, but they can also help with your federal side. And then the procurement technical assistance centers, which are now called Apex Accelerators, which is partially funded by the DoD, provide help for the federal side of your business. So and they can help with like marketing, proposal preparation, things like that. They're not going to do it for you, but they'll just give you advice and give you, a second set of eyes, things like that. Hopefully everyone has the welcome package that you should have gotten from your contracting officer. If not, the link is right there. It'll say things like upload your SIP, like we mentioned. And here's the SIP download and the modification page, which I mentioned earlier. And these are just phone numbers to have handy that once you get the presentation. And that's all we have for this the presentation part. Like we said, we'll have 2 more calls together. Probably in 2 weeks, we'll do the modification one. And then in like 2 weeks after that, we'll do the opportunities and data analysis tools for the 3rd call. So I'm going to post a survey in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. There's a little triangle, square, circle thing. I don't know why, but that if you would like to answer, it's totally anonymous, just about how you think the content is. And I think, yeah, we'll get into some questions now if we have them. Oh, actually, one more thing. If you received the invitation from a coworker and not directly from me, if you either could email me or put your email address in the chat box, because Google Calendar gets a little bit weird about it doesn't add everyone onto the invite list for some reason. I think it's based on if the person accepts it or not. So then you might not get the presentation unless you either just email me or put your name in the chat.
Okay. So, yeah, let's address some of these questions. Kirk, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying? Right. I don't know if we lost him.
Did someone raise their hand? Yeah.
Yeah, we have someone. Karina raised her hand, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So since we had our SIP accepted, we're not able to still get into the eBuy system. It says that we're not affiliated with a contract. Is that something that, or who do we speak to about that? Just call Vendor Support Center?
Yeah, there's on